Hello and welcome. You know how all your different apps just work together? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on that magic. We are going to demystify the entire API ecosystem and turn all that complicated tech jargon into stuff that actually makes sense. I mean, really think about it. How does your food delivery app know exactly where the driver is using a map from a totally different company? Or how can a travel website pull up flight info from hundreds of different airlines in just a few seconds? Well, the secret ingredient behind all of that seamless connection is something called an API. And that's exactly what we're going to walk through. What they are, how they're dreamed up, how they're built, and how they're managed. So let's get right into it, starting with the absolute basics. All right, section 1. So what on earth is an API anyway? Let's build our foundation right here. Okay, here's my favorite analogy. Think of an API as a waiter in a restaurant. You are one application, and the kitchen is another application. Now, you don't just walk into the kitchen and start making your own food, right? Of course not. You give your order, that's the request, to the waiter. The waiter, our API, takes that request to the kitchen and then brings back your food, that's the response. It's that critical middleman that lets totally different pieces of software talk to each other. Now, not all waiters work the same way. You've got two main styles you'll hear about: REST and SOAP. Think of REST as a super flexible, popular set of guidelines. It's huge for web APIs because it's pretty simple and uses standard web tech. That means REST APIs are usually stateless, they forget about your order as soon as it's done, and cacheable, meaning they can save a recent answer nearby so they don't have to go back to the kitchen every single time. SOAP, on the other hand, is much more formal. It's a strict protocol, like a very rigid set of rules that has to be followed to the letter. And here's a pro tip, because this is a super common mix-up. In the world of modern REST APIs, you'll hear the word endpoint thrown around a lot, but really, the much more precise term is operation. And it matters because it describes the action you're taking. For instance, using a command like get to fetch a list of products. So it's not just the address you're going to, it's the verb. It's what you do when you get there. So now we know what an API is. But here's the thing. Before you write a single line of code, you need a plan, a really good one. So let's move into the blueprint phase. API design. API design is quite literally like creating the blueprint for a house. It's all about that careful, upfront planning. And a great design isn't just about making it work. It's about making it a dream for other developers to use. You want it to be totally predictable and consistent, so they know exactly what to expect. And that philosophy leads us to this fantastic best practice called the design-first approach. All it means is that you finish the blueprint and you get everybody, the clients, the coders, the managers, to agree on it before anyone starts building. Trust me, this saves an unbelievable amount of headaches and money down the road. Now, to make that blueprint, designers use a few key tools. The OpenAPI specification, that's like the universal language for describing what the API can do. A style guide is the rule book that makes sure all your different APIs have the same look and feel. And API models, which often use something called JSON schema, define exactly what the data needs to look like. It's like the official ingredients list for your recipe. And this is what that data often looks like. It's a format called JSON, and it's just a simple, really easy-to-read way of organizing information. You have a key, like name, and a value, like John Doe. That's pretty much it. This simple structure is the backbone for how most modern APIs pass information back and forth. Okay, the blueprint is done, everyone loves it, time for the fun part, actually building this thing. Let's dive into the key ideas in the development process. So imagine 10 people all trying to write a novel in the same document at the same time. It would be absolute chaos, right? Well, a version control system, and the most famous one is Git, solves this exact problem for programmers. It's a system that tracks every single change, who made it, and when they made it, so that huge teams can work together without stepping on each other's toes. And the whole process has this really simple, powerful rhythm to it. First, you clone a copy of the main project onto your own computer. Then you create a new branch, a separate little sandbox to work on your new feature without messing up the original. And as you work, you frequently commit or save these little snapshots of your progress. It's just a super organized and safe way to collaborate. All right, CI and CD. These are all about putting your workflow on autopilot. Continuous integration, or CI, is like having a robot that constantly grabs the new code from all the developers, smashes it together, and runs a bunch of tests to catch bugs right away. Then, continuous delivery, or CD, takes that freshly tested code and gets it all packed up and ready for release. It's like a high-tech, super efficient assembly line for software. Oh, this is such a clever trick. So picture this. The team building the user interface is totally ready to go, but the team building the actual engine of the API isn't finished yet. What do? With mocking, you can create a fake API that just pretends to work and sends back dummy data. This is awesome because it lets both teams work at the exact same time, which is just incredibly efficient. Okay, look, building one API is one thing. But what happens when your company has dozens or hundreds or even thousands of them? How in the world do you manage that entire ecosystem without it turning into total chaos? Well, a successful API program is way more about people than it is about code. It's a team sport. You need the architect, who's like the master city planner. You need the product manager deciding what features the API needs. You need the technical writer who creates the instruction manual. And you need a program leader to steer the entire ship. Everyone has a critical role to play. And as your company builds more and more of these APIs, you need a plan to keep things from getting messy. That's where API governance comes in. It's basically the zoning laws and building codes for your digital city. It sets the rules so that every new API that gets built is consistent, high quality, and easy for people to find and use later on. And that leads to a huge choice in how you build things. On one side, you have the monolith, one giant all-in-one application where everything is tangled together. On the other side, you have microservices, where you break that big application down into a collection of tiny, independent services that all talk to each other using, you guessed it, APIs. The big advantage there? You can update one little piece of the puzzle without having to rebuild the entire thing. And finally, let's bring it all home. We're going to pull all these ideas together and talk about the ultimate goal, starting to think of your APIs not just as technical plumbing, but as actual valuable products. This right here is the big, mind-blowing idea. For so many modern companies, the API isn't just some techie thing that connects systems in the background. The API is the product. Think about companies that process credit card payments or provide mapping data. Their entire business is delivered to customers through an API. That's the core value. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures this massive shift in how businesses work today. The real value isn't just in the flashy app you can see, it's in the powerful service that the API provides under the hood. And that really is what it all comes down to. We've gone from the basic definition to design, building, and managing. But the real transformation happens when you stop thinking of APIs as just a technical cost and start seeing them as the business itself. And that's